All right, I think you're being sold a bunch of bull on this one. I'm just not buying it. I'm not buying this idea that Dominic Miller, who was originally charged with second-degree murder and unlawful use of a weapon and 2 counts of armed criminal action in the shooting that killed Lisa Lopez Galvin at the Chiefs Super Bowl parade rally just over 2 years ago, who now is basically pleading to a lesser charge. This all happened yesterday. The second-degree murder charge was dropped. The unlawful use of a weapon was reduced to a Class E felony. Miller has been sentenced to 2 years in prison and will receive credit for time already served. So, he should be out by Memorial Day, give or take, right? I mean, he's ready for a full-blown summer. Sure, it's going to be a great time for Dominic Miller. I'm not buying this idea that it is as simple as blaming the stand your ground law in Missouri, and it's as simple as blaming basically Republicans in Jeff City, which is what you heard a lot of yesterday, a lot of it, all over Kansas City media yesterday afternoon. I mean, you flip around the dial, flip around the TV, go on social media, and that's what you are going to get. And I have Cahterine Hannaway, who is the Missouri Attorney General, coming on in 1 hour. I'm going to ask her point blank if you can simply blame Missouri law for Dominic Miller getting off the way he did yesterday with this plea deal in Jackson County. And I preface all this by saying I have been very complimentary of Jackson County Prosecutor Melissa Johnson. Now, this case may have been tricky because you obviously have thousands of people right around Union Station 25 months ago. And while there may have been evidence that Dominic Miller did not fire the first shot, therefore there may be some claim to self-defense, I understand that. But the larger problem I believe we have here in Jackson County is not necessarily in this specific case a prosecutor who did not want to prosecute. But I think you have issues with judges. You may have lower level prosecutors who are like, I'm not sure this is a slam dunk. I don't know. Well, you know what? Sometimes you roll the dice, you take things to a jury, and you see how it plays out. Because while, yes, Missouri does have robust self-defense laws, and stand your ground is obviously one of those, I'm looking at this thing and I'm saying to myself, okay, as I understand it, because we've talked to people who have been part of these laws, who helped write them, who helped draft them, who helped pass them, who made it very clear that deadly force is only justified if a person reasonably believes it's necessary to protect themselves or another person from death, serious physical injury, forcible rape and robbery. And the force must be directed at the person who's posing that threat. On top of that, the stand your ground law does not allow for reckless gunfire. It doesn't allow for shooting into a crowd. It doesn't allow for shooting someone who's not threatening you. It's not an excuse to hit innocent bystanders like Lisa Lopez Galvin. So I don't think we're getting the full story here. And that's why I want to get on Cahterine Hannaway, the Attorney General, who is already scheduled to be on the show, to come on and answer some questions here next hour. So she will do that at 7:05 because rightfully so, much of Kansas City was looking at the news yesterday and saying, how is this possible? You have this guy, Dominic Miller, who's been sentenced to 2 years in prison for what happened. He did fire the weapon that killed Lisa Lopez Galvan. And, I mean, my goodness, 2 years in prison, and he's going to get credit for time already served. And Miller's attorney says that he's been in custody for more than 2 years and is expected to be released from jail soon. So this guy is going to be back on the streets in Kansas City. I mean, I don't know. Tip off for the NCAA tournament next week? Is this guy going to be down at Power and Light, hanging out, having a beer, watching some college basketball 25 months after killing Lisa Lopez Galvan? And I will say this, I'll be fair, if there is a loophole here, that suggests that Dominic Miller was able to find a hole within the stand your ground law in Missouri that is very robust and allowed, obviously, his defense to get an upper hand over the prosecutor's office, then you know what? Let's explore that. Let's have that conversation. Maybe tweaks are needed down in Jeff City. Because if it is true that the Missouri state law allows a guy like Dominic Miller to go out there and do what he did outside of Union Station 25 months ago, and 2 years later get credit for time served after the prosecutor cuts a deal with his attorneys, then yes, we have a major problem on our hands. And we've talked about some of the issues around the stand your ground law in Missouri as well. We have the guy up in the Northland who was killed by his allegedly crazy neighbor a couple of months ago. And there's a belief that the defense attorney in that case may use the stand your ground law because the two of them were beefing in the middle of the road. So we've got that story up in the Northland from a couple of months back. That may be something else that ties into the stand your ground defense that obviously has gotten a lot of attention over the years here in the state of Missouri. But it's not as, to me, as black and white as, well, it's obviously the fault of Missouri state law. It's too convenient for too many people who for too long have been looking to point the finger of all the woes in Missouri and specifically Kansas City as it relates to violent crime, point that finger at Jefferson City and specifically at the Republican Party in Jefferson City. And yesterday felt like for a lot of people a convenient excuse to do exactly that. I mean, let's just be clear. We clearly have a problem here in Kansas City when it comes to violent crime, a thug problem in Kansas City when it comes to violent crime. And there are too many people who are far more interested in just pointing the finger than doing the tough, difficult work that needs to be done. And I have been complimentary of this prosecutor's office. And I'm not saying that this is the moment where you say to yourself, come on, what are you guys doing? First off, they stepped into this case halfway through it. So I don't know what got done before. I don't know what got done after. But we just need to sit here and know more right now. Because Kansas Cityans deserve to know that guys like Dominic Miller do not get to shoot and kill somebody and then get time served a couple of years later and be out on the streets for, the 250th birthday of America. This guy's got to be gallivanting around town celebrating America 250. No, this is why, in part, people are like, you know what? I'm done. I'm out. You can't protect me. I'm going to pay you an earnings tax that we're set to renew here in a month. I'm going to pay you enormous property taxes, and you can't prove to me that a guy like Dominic Miller is not on the street walking outside my home today? Really? That's what you're telling Jackson County residents? That's it right there. That's your answer for these people. That is absolutely unbelievable. But for too many people, you know what? They don't care. They just don't care because they're so caught up in trying to win the political game of the day. I'm not interested in that right now. Not on this issue. Sometimes, yeah, I admit it's fun. Not on this issue. 913-408-7957. That is our text line and our studio line here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. We are streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. I will reach out to the Jackson County Prosecutor's Office this morning, try to get some clarity on this, but we want to make sure that you are here less than 1 hour from now when we have on the Missouri Attorney General, Cahterine Hannaway, to try to get some answers on this as well and see if there is something that needs to be done about this. 913-408-7957. That's the text line and the studio line here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. We'll get to a lot more coming up here on KCMO. We have Thomas Rhett tickets at 8:15. Do not miss that. First chance to win coming up in 2 hours. The President of the United States signaling the war may be ending soon. But part of the problem right now is you've got a lot of people saying a lot of different things. So what should we be buying into and what should we be believing? We'll get to that next, right here on KCMO.
From Gladstone to Gardner, you're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
So President Trump is sending some mixed messages on what exactly is going on with Operation Epic Fury. You may have seen there were some swings in the stock market yesterday, and the market started down. Then they swung back to the upside. Early afternoon, late afternoon, as the president started to signal that maybe things were ramping down over in Iran. And then yesterday afternoon, the president does a press conference, does a Q&A. And it kind of bounced back and forth as to whether or not the war was ongoing, whether or not this thing was going to be ending soon. And here's a perfect example of what that sounded like between President Trump and the media when he was asked this very question.
Mr. President, you've said the war is, quote, very complete, but your defense secretary says this is just the beginning. So which is it, and how long should Americans be prepared
Well, I think
for
you could
this war
say
to
it
last
both.
for?
It's the beginning of building a new country, but they have no Navy, they have no Air Force, they have no anti-aircraft equipment. It's all been blown up. They have no radar, they have no telecommunications, and they have no leadership. It's all gone. So, you could look at that statement. We could call it a tremendous success right now as we leave here. I could call it, or we could go further, and we're going to go further.
Okay, so which one is it? It could be over, but we're going to go further. And I think what the president was trying to do yesterday is basically calm things down for the markets. Now, I understand why. I actually, when you see the stock market down 500 points, remember, with the Dow approaching 50,000, that's only 1%. If the stock market, which acts like a teenage girl sometimes, was really intent on having a major correction because of Operation Epic Fury, I think we would have seen it by now. Oil prices jumped to $120 a barrel, then came down to 90. And by the way, the latest this morning, as we get up and going here with the markets opening up in a couple of hours, Brent crude was down about 8% at $91 a barrel as of 3:30 a.m. this morning. U.S. crude oil also fell 8% to about $87 a barrel. This decline continues after oil surged past $100 on Monday. But you have prices plunging as much as 10% just during the overnight hours in oil. So that's actually got stock futures up as we sit here at 6:22 on a Tuesday morning. I mean, not up dramatically, but everything's in the green right now with the market set to open up in a couple of hours. So here's what we know as well. What is the other side of this war saying? Iranian officials responded by insisting they had no intention of ending the conflict. This was a post that was put up on social media at 3 o'clock this morning. All right. Iran's Speaker of Parliament, he posted this morning, "We are not seeking a ceasefire. We believe we must strike the aggressor in the mouth so that it learns a lesson and never again even thinks of aggressing against our dear Iran. The Zionist regime sees its existence in perpetuating the cycle of war negotiation, ceasefire, and then war again in order to consolidate its domination. We will break this cycle." That is the post from one of the leaders in Iran as of 3.5 hours ago. So you tell me what exactly the attitude is amongst leadership in Iran. And Trump can't walk away from this thing right now, to be totally honest. I mean, he started this thing. He's got to finish this thing. The worst thing that he could do is just wipe his hands clean and say, well, the Dow's down a couple thousand, so I think I'm done here. No, because then you potentially end up with a worse situation. Now, that does not mean that you want boots on the ground. That does not mean that you want more military conflict. But Trump can't just walk away. I don't think he can do that right now. And by the way, it was Sunday afternoon that he was rightfully so posting on social media about complete and total destruction and winning at all costs. Frankly, I like that because I actually think that can happen sooner rather than later. For the last almost 75 plus years or so, we've kind of fought these wars without the idea of just complete and total domination. We've kind of done this whole we're going to win to the point of allowing you to maybe rebuild under certain guidelines and guardrails. I'm not sure that's the play here. Not that anybody wants to nation build, not that anybody wants boots on the ground or anything like that. That's not the goal. That's not the plan. But walking away because the market's down and oil might be up a hair, we all knew this was going to come, right? You think the stock market was going to like war? You think oil prices were going to just magically not go up because of this? Of course that was going to happen. So being prepared for it obviously matters, and it has to be part of the game plan here. And I'm not sensing that's the case right now. So the other update here from 18 minutes ago, Hezbollah militants in Lebanon appear to have stepped up their attacks on Israeli forces after a heavy Israeli bombardment on Lebanon on Monday. Since 4:55 in the morning local time, the group said it has already conducted 15 operations compared to 22 yesterday. So schools are closed there until the end of March. A 4-day work week is in place for the next 2 months, and warships are escorting commercial vehicles. So obviously you have some of that chaos continuing in that part of the world. Now it has spread to Lebanon. So that's where this thing is at this morning. And the president, I think, was trying to just yesterday calm things down. That was, I believe, his only goal. I don't think anything changes from yesterday to today because you had Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, a couple of days ago saying, hey, we're not going anywhere. We're finishing this job. And then less than 24 hours later, Trump's like, well, it might be ending soon. He should not look at the stock market. Seriously. If he believed that this was the right thing to do at this point in world history, you can't look at the stock market. You just can't do it. It's like when you're, a first-time investor and you're going up and down and riding a roller coaster. Oh, my portfolio's up 3% today. It's that. No, you can't live like that. Trump can't live like that. He had to know there was going to be volatility in the markets, and now you've just got to accept that and finish the job the way your advisors suggest it need to be finished, and then move on. That's it. That's the name of the game. And that's what the focus needs to be right now. Coming up, just how much trouble is Kansas in monetarily, and how does that relate to the Chiefs next?
The fun's not done after Mundo in the Morning. Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Join me for Uncanceled at 10 o'clock right here on KCMO Talk Radio.
Kansas is a mess. I totally missed this last week. I saw it from Phil Sarnecki, who is running for governor in Kansas, and he's running as the outside businessman in this race. Obviously has had a lot of success in the business world, and now he's making a move. It's like the Glenn Youngkin playbook that he's going for here in Kansas. And I saw him post on social media yesterday this headline from last week in Kansas. And the headline reads as follows. Kansas February tax revenue down $58 million from projections. And he goes on the note here on his X account yesterday. Governor Laura Kelly and career politicians have been a disaster for working families. Kansans are fleeing the state because we have the highest income taxes in the region, out of control property taxes, and overregulation. It's time to change direction. We need a business leader and an outsider as the next governor of Kansas to help the hardworking patriots across this state. Let's win in Kansas. So that was part of the post from Philip Sarnecki yesterday. And I saw that, and I started doing some digging on this story. And yeah, there it is. The state collected $500 million in taxes last month in Kansas. That is 10% below the projection. Kansas took in $58 million less in tax revenue than it expected in February. So they missed the mark by individual income tax receipts of $44 million. They missed out on corporate income tax revenue of $15 million. So that's a bad spot for the state to be in. And now you think about the state of Kansas and what they are set to do here, obviously, in the next few years. And they are set to put themselves at incredible risk as it relates to the Kansas City Chiefs. At a time when the state is insisting to you, most of its major politicians are insisting to you, that this Chiefs deal is at no risk to you. It is nothing but roses. Everything is going great. Everything will go great. Don't worry about it. The Star Bond is something you don't have to worry about. You won't be on the hook. The state's not going to back it. All the risk is on the bondholders and or the team. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it for a single second. And this is just another example of why I'm not buying it. I'm not. Kansas has a major problem on its hands as it relates to its fiscal sanity, or I guess I would say lack thereof. And the fact that they think cutting this Chiefs deal for billions of dollars in subsidies, foregoing future tax revenues at a time when their income tax revenues are not meeting the expectations. Now they're going to give up a bunch of sales tax revenues starting next decade in the most prime real estate in the entire state, parts of Johnson County and Wyandotte County. They're going to give all that up when right now they're not even getting the projected revenue they expect to get. But somehow 8 football games a year is going to magically turn the tide for them. You've got to be kidding me. If this fiscal plan was put together in Economics 101, freshman year of college, you'd flunk these guys and gals. You'd give them a big old F. But here in Kansas, there are still, I don't think a large number of people, but some people who are just like, oh yeah, it's all roses, baby. Everything's great. Nothing to see here. And what they're really doing is whistling right past the graveyard. That's what's actually going on. Now, I know that some of you are making the argument, and I'm seeing it right now in the text line of, well, this is why we need the Chiefs, because all these people are going to come here, and they're going to live here, and they're going to do business here, and we're going to increase our income tax revenues. Are you? I mean, you already have Chiefs players that live in Kansas. You know that, right? Like, I don't want to say the majority, but a lot of them already live in Kansas to begin with. You already had Chiefs players living in this state. You have coaches who live in this state. Moving the stadium here doesn't change the income tax revenue that you magically generate. It's not how it works. Now, they work here now, so there might be a portion of that will go to your coffers. But it's not to the tune of billions of dollars. That's not how the math works on the deal, John.
I've lived here all my life in my career. I can imagine if I moved every time that I changed radio stations,
Yeah.
right? Like we're insinuating would happen, right?
Well, yes.
You don't migrate, really. You just drive a different route.
You just drive a different route, and maybe you buy your coffee somewhere else, right? Maybe that changes. Maybe those 5 cents in sales taxes on your coffee shifts from one municipality to another. But that's about it. That's the extent of it. Kansas literally had everything going for it, where they had all the perks of being right next to a major league city without having to pay a dime, without having to take on a single ounce of risk. And they threw it all away, and now they have put themselves in, I believe, what's going to be a tenuous situation coming up in 2031 with the stadium. And I was talking to somebody last week about this. Well, actually, somebody reached out to me. And what they told me was that they believe, based on the numbers, the Chiefs are going to get the state of Kansas to back the bonds. They're going to have to. Because as the banks right now, I believe it's Wells Fargo and Bank of America. Those are the banks that are basically analyzing the value and the risk associated with this Star Bond project with the Kansas City Chiefs. What you will have is the Chiefs go back to the state of Kansas and say, the deal's almost done, guys. It's almost done, but you got to back the bonds or we can't finish this deal. And that's going to happen. And the politicians are going to say, fine, the state will back the bonds. That's what I'm hearing could very well end up happening in Kansas, because as the numbers start to get crunched, as the banks start to look at this, it's not all that attractive, and there's a lot of risk associated with it. And if it happens after the election, all the people who told you for months, hey, don't worry about it, there's no risk to you, there's no risk to the state, they'll have been reelected. I'm just saying it's entirely possible that happens based on some of the people I was talking to about this just last week. I want to be wrong. I'm just sending out the warning signs right now that it's possible that that's how this thing plays out. And it would be such a gross reversal for so many people who for so long just told you nothing to see here, no risk, no tax increase, don't worry about it, state's not on the hook, and they will be put on the hook in some capacity beyond what is currently happening right now in this deal. Now, on top of that, something else that's going on right now, speaking of the Chiefs, you do have a situation here where they're going to be moving ahead with what they're calling a Kansas Sports Authority, where basically the state of Kansas would end up owning the stadium, similar to what you have in Jackson County. There would be a Kansas Sports Facility Authority that would own the stadium. That bill is getting set to be debated this week in the House, and I'm sure it's going to pass, because what's there to suggest that it won't? But basically what it does is, just like in Jackson County, it would allow the team to not have to own the stadium. You get all the perks of having the stadium without having to actually own the stadium or pay any taxes on the stadium. It's a great deal. I would take one of those with my house. I don't know about you, but that sounds like a great deal. So that's going to be happening this week in Topeka. And on top of that, you have this from yesterday. I saw this chart, and I'll share it shortly here on social media as well. And it shows where Americans are moving and where they're leaving in 2025. Net migration loss and gain per 10,000 inhabitants. And Kansas is one of the worst states in the country when it comes to net migration loss. The only states worse than Kansas in net migration loss last year, California, New York, Massachusetts, Maryland, and North Carolina. Those were the only states worse than Kansas last year in net migration loss. And these people genuinely believe that billions of dollars in tax breaks for 8 football games a year is suddenly the thing that stems that tide when that football team was basically already here to begin with without any risk whatsoever to the taxpayer or the state itself. Think about that. These individuals and these leaders have failed at every turn because it's not about you, it's about them. Let's be very clear on that. And I say that as a diehard Chiefs fan who loves going to games, who loves rooting this team on, and who is holding right now in my hand a Chiefs mug as I sit here on a Tuesday morning. Coming up, the 6 at 6. We'll get to our top 6 stories in the 6 o'clock hour here on KCMO Talk Radio. It's a Tirade Tuesday as well at 8:35 on 95.7 FM.
On Tuesday's Guy Benson Show, General Jack Keane, Fox News senior strategic analyst, will be here breaking down the very latest out of Iran. Coming up at 2 o'clock on KCMO.
6:49, good morning. Great to have you here on KCMO Talk Radio. It's that time of the morning.
It's time for the 6 at 6 on KCMO Talk Radio.
Well, you heard Luke Doris mention it there. We are going to have a beautiful day in Kansas City, but tonight the weather will be back in the forefront. Strong to potentially severe storms could move into the Kansas City area tonight and during the overnight hours. Now, most of the metro has at least some risk for thunderstorms as the evening rolls along, and they could end up turning severe. The primary threats include hail and strong winds, with a lower chance of a tornado. Those chances increase to our north and our east across the state of Missouri. So the most likely hazards tonight with these storms, large hail, that's the primary concern, gusty to damaging winds, and a low tornado risk mainly early in the evening. Those tornado chances decrease dramatically after about 11 p.m. tonight. That's when heavy rain becomes more of a major concern. So just stay, obviously, locked in on the weather tonight because it could get severe.
Number 2.
All right, let's go to the story here from yesterday that led the show, and that is the Chiefs Parade mass shooting suspect entering a plea for a lesser charge. Dominic Miller, originally charged with second-degree murder, has seen a deal and has received a deal after the shooting that killed Lisa Lopez Galvan 25 months ago. He entered a guilty plea to unlawful use of a weapon yesterday. The second-degree murder charge was dropped. The unlawful use of a weapon was reduced to a Class E felony. Miller has been sentenced to 2 years in prison and will receive credit for time already served. And he's been in custody for more than 2 years and is expected to be released from jail soon. Cahterine Hannaway is the Missouri Attorney General. I will ask her about this and what exactly is to blame. Coming up in 10 minutes on KCMO Talk Radio. Don't miss it because a lot of people are wanting to just point the finger at Missouri state laws because that's convenient for a lot of people in media. I just want to know exactly what's going on, and I would think that the top law enforcement officer in the state would be able to give us a pretty good answer on that.
Number 3.
All right, rolling through our 6 at 6 here on KCMO, an update on Operation Epic Fury. Well, we'll start with what was posted very early this morning on social media from Iran's Speaker of Parliament. He said in a social media post the country was absolutely not seeking a ceasefire. This after Trump said yesterday the war is more or less coming to an end. So this was quite a post that came down at about 2:50 our time. Writing here, and once again, this is Iran's Speaker of Parliament saying we are not seeking a ceasefire. We believe we must strike the aggressor in the mouth so that it learns a lesson and never again even thinks of aggressing against our dear Iran. Boy, what do you think? What do you think Trump's thinking this morning when he wakes up and sees that post from the Iranian leadership?
They don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
I would say that that's probably what he said to Marco Rubio when they had their first meeting very early this morning. I don't think that sat well in the Oval Office. That's my guess. But oil prices are extending their slide as investors are trying to figure out what exactly is going on with Operation Epic Fury. But this is after yesterday's crazy ride for oil prices. Price of a barrel went up to $116. Then it tanked as the day went on. During the overnight trading hours, U.S. crude oil came down about 8%. Same with Brent crude, both about $87 to $91 per barrel. These declines come after the oil surge past $100 a barrel on Monday. So we'll monitor what these oil prices look like today. Mark, do me a favor. Don't bet the oil futures today, okay? Take a break. Just wait for the Big 12 tournament to start at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, I'm done with oil. I'm back on Big 12. So
okay.
No problem there.
All right. Good idea. That's a smart move by you. Don't bet the oil prices. Don't bet the Federal Reserve raising interest rates or lowering interest rates. Just Stay in your lane, as they say, Mark, okay? As someone famously used to say around here. Stay in your lane.
Staying in it.
Staying in it. Very good. All right, next up.
Number 4.
In our 6 at 6, let's go to Bonner Springs. Story here. House fire left 2 in critical condition and officers injured after a house fire last night in Bonner Springs also left a Good Samaritan and 2 police officers injured in the process. Emergency crews from Bonner Springs Police Department and the fire department called at about 7 o'clock last night to the 500 block of Alcutt Avenue on a house fire. When they showed up, heavy smoke, flames coming from the home. Witnesses told police people were still inside. Officers went into the home, removed those inside from the house until firefighters arrived. 2 residents and a passerby who stopped to help were taken to the hospital with serious injuries. Police said the 2 residents remain in critical condition, while the citizen who assisted is listed in stable condition. 2 Bonner Springs police officers also hospitalized for minor injuries and smoke inhalation. The cause of the fire has not yet been determined.
Number 5.
Well, a huge day yesterday for the Kansas City Chiefs. My goodness, Travis Kelce coming back on a 1-year deal for what, $12 million up to $15 million potentially in earnings for Travis Kelce. So that happened yesterday. And then also the Chiefs landing a stud running back in Kenneth Walker. $45 million deal with the Chiefs coming over from the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. 3 years up to $45 million for Kenneth Walker, 25 years old, cashing in after an incredible postseason run with the Seahawks. All right, you guys good with these deals? Everyone happy on the other side of the glass? Okay.
Oh, yeah. You know I was into it. Back in October, I need to find my tweet, but I said, when Kenneth Walker's a free agent, he needs to get to the Chiefs.
Oh, really? Oh, boy, Mark. Look at you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yep. I'm fired up. I mean, Patrick Mahomes has never had a running back like this since he's been here, right? I mean, not even close.
Yeah, maybe Hunt his rookie year, but
that's it.
Mahomes wasn't a starter then. So.
Yeah, bingo, exactly. So great moves yesterday by the Chiefs. Kelce, a team-friendly deal. And last up,
number 6.
The Big 12 tournament gets underway today at T-Mobile Center. So that's happening today. The first game, Arizona State and Baylor at 11:30. We also have Kansas State taking on BYU in the third game of the day at 6 p.m. KU not playing until Thursday. There is your 6 at 6 coming up. Cahterine Hannaway, Missouri Attorney General. A lot to get to with her after yesterday's drama with one of the Chiefs' parade shooters next. Well, the big news here in Kansas City yesterday came, and it was one that was, I know, disappointing and beyond frustrating to a lot of Kansas Citians when Dominic Miller, who was originally charged with second-degree murder, unlawful use of a weapon, and 2 counts of armed criminal action in connection with the shooting at the Super Bowl parade from 2+ years ago now that killed Lisa Lopez Galvan, entered a guilty plea to unlawful use of a weapon yesterday. So a second-degree murder charge gets dropped, unlawful use of a weapon reduced to a Class E felony, and Miller gets sentenced to 2 years in prison and will receive credit for time already served. So he's expected to now be released from jail pretty soon. We've got a lot to get to here with the Missouri Attorney General, Cahterine Hannaway, joining us on KCMO. But with this breaking news, Attorney General, there's a lot of finger pointing going on. You have folks up in Jackson County saying, hey, the state laws, stand your ground, are what they are. We can't get around it. Why should Kansas Cityans look at this story and feel like justice has been served? Or do you feel like it has not been served in this case?
Well, first of all, hey, good morning, Pete. It's good to be with you. Nothing like a tough one right out of the box. It is a tragic situation. And we often find that bad facts potentially make bad law. It sounds, I didn't work this case. I haven't seen the evidence in this case. I don't believe that we need any changes to our gun laws. I think we should continue to have the right to defend ourselves in Missouri. It could be that they, as applied to this particular set of facts, came out to the wrong conclusion. But I'm not in a position to second guess everybody's judgment that applied the laws here. What I will tell you is that I'm proud that Missouri is a strong Second Amendment state and will continue to be a strong Second Amendment state. I'm in town to work on human trafficking, and with the World Cup coming up, it's going to be a very, very large human trafficking event, and that's tragic, and we're going to do everything we can to prevent that.
So with that being the case, I mean, I just want to be clear on this. When it comes to stand your ground, and just generally speaking, not in this case, Missouri's stand your ground law doesn't allow you to, reckless gunfire or shoot into a crowd or shoot someone who's not threatening you, right? Because I keep hearing that if we just had a better stand your ground law in Missouri, situations like yesterday in Kansas City would not unfold the way they did. But I think that there's maybe a misconception, whether it's on purpose or not, as to what exactly the stand your ground law does in Missouri. So can you clarify some of that for us?
Yeah, so the stand your ground law only allows you to protect yourself or someone else from imminent harm and imminent lethal harm. And so, yes, just randomly shooting in an area is not targeting someone for harm or killing.
Okay.
So I think our law is sufficient as it stands. Now, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of talk about this because the outcome is not what anybody wanted. And I'm so sorry for the family of the victim. I mean, we talk about just one of the great tragedies that's happened in recent years in Kansas City on such a joyous day, to lose your loved one. And I can understand why people are really upset about this.
Do you think that, we have an issue when it comes to prosecutors not wanting to take things like this to a trial? Is there a reason they wouldn't, and broadly speaking? Or do you think that as you go around the state and you deal with prosecutors, whether it's Jackson County, Platte County, Clay County, or outstate Missouri, these people actually do want to get the job done and do want to see justice served in cases like this and others?
It's been my experience that they really do want to see justice served, but there are times when you have bad facts, and that's what I'm saying is I have not seen the video. Like there may be some piece of evidence that makes this case very difficult to prove against the defendant, and I don't want to get too far out over my skis talking about some facts that I'm not intimately familiar with.
I understand. All right. Cahterine Hannaway is the Missouri Attorney General on KCMO. So you're in Kansas City. Human trafficking, let's be honest, is going to be a major issue in Kansas City and around the country with the World Cup coming here this summer. What should Kansas Cityans be on the look for as we get closer to this event happening here in June and July?
Well, first thing I want people to understand is that, as a society, as a country, in a good way, we have come to understand much better that the young girls and boys that, typically we've thought of as runaways, maybe even thought of as prostitutes, that you see showing up at truck stops, bus stations, hotels, often aren't there of their own free will. And so when we talk about the victims of human trafficking, that's who we're talking about. Jeffrey Epstein obviously was the king of human traffickers. So it can even be in pretty nice, sophisticated places. And these human traffickers are preying on just the absolute most vulnerable, usually young people in our society. So if you see an adult male walking into a hotel with several young people that don't appear to be his children, if you see a young person who looks like they're really troubled with adults that don't seem to have a familial relationship, please report it. Like, we can always take it from there and investigate it. And it's not just law enforcement who's investigating these now. There's all kinds of non-governmental, not-for-profit agencies, including, this surprised me as I've gotten further into this world, Tim Tebow, the former Heisman Trophy-winning quarterback, has one of the most effective foundations in this area and does an incredible job of providing data that really helps law enforcement make these cases. But the reason the World Cup is such a hot spot is because you have some of the wealthiest people from all over the world coming into town to party and go to games for an extended period of time, and they often bring that entertainment with them or find local available entertainment.
So as you're going through this process then as the Attorney General, and you're working with, I imagine, state, local, and federal officials on this, what are you doing to try to prevent as much human trafficking as possible from coming to Kansas City?
Yep. So today what we're doing all day long is training both not-for-profits and law enforcement officials on how to spot those red flags, what to do when you have spotted them, how to investigate them. And believe me, it's a two-way learning experience because lots of those folks have a lot of experience. And so they're teaching the Attorney General's office while we're teaching them, and they're teaching and learning from each other. And it's going to take a really strong cooperative effort. And you're right, prevention is what we are hoping for. We want to cut down on this as much as possible, but we do know from experience that the Super Bowl is usually the largest human trafficking event of the year. So the World Cup is, a Super Bowl times 10.
So with that, what do you anticipate when it comes to human trafficking, and where does it come from? Is it local? Is it domestic? Is it international?
So it's all of that. It's all of that. And unfortunately, because Missouri has so many major interstates that run through it, we have often been sort of a place where a lot of trafficking from the south comes. And there's also, there's the element of human trafficking that is prostitution. There's also the element of human trafficking that is illegal immigration. And that will be a component as well. And highways like 70, because it goes across, or interstates like 70, because it goes across the country, are the kinds of routes that we see a lot of trafficking happening on. 44 to our south is a major one. 29 isn't as much, but it has been a place. So we'll see them coming in by highway. The other thing that I got tipped off to yesterday, which I don't think we've trained on enough, is that we're going to have all these private aircraft coming in, and that may be another spot where we may need to make sure the airport personnel are able to spot the red flags.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's all good to know. So, Attorney General Hannaway, thank you as always for being here. Enjoy the time in Kansas City, and we'll be talking to you soon as we get closer to this World Cup. Appreciate all you're doing. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Pete.
All right. Cahterine Hannaway, the Attorney General in the state of Missouri, on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM, streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. As always, on a Tuesday morning. Tirade Tuesday coming up next hour here on KCMO Talk Radio at 8:35. We have Thomas Rhett tickets 1 hour from now. He's going to be at Morton Amphitheater later this year. So that is at 8:15 every day this week on KCMO. Any updates from the Pentagon happening here in the last few minutes? We will get to you next on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM.
Vince Colonnese here. Join me for your lunch hour from 11 to 2 on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
There's a live press conference going on right now at the Pentagon, 7:22 on a Tuesday morning. Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, is taking questions on Operation Epic Fury. But the headline here from the last few minutes is Pete Hegseth saying that today could be quite a day or will be quite a day as it relates to Operation Epic Fury. Here's what he had to say moments ago.
For example, today will be yet again our most intense day of strikes inside Iran. The most fighters, the most bombers, the most strikes. Intelligence more refined and better than ever. So that's on one hand. On the other hand, the last 24 hours have seen Iran fire the lowest number of missiles they've been capable of firing yet. Just the bifurcation, just the trend lines that we talked about on our first briefing.
Okay, so that was Pete Hegseth like 10 minutes ago. This is completely different from what the President of the United States was saying yesterday when he was saying, yeah, I think the war might be coming to an end. Listen, I'm on board with what they're trying to do, but they got to get their damn story straight. Which one is it? Literally 12 hours ago, Trump's like, I think this thing might be ramping down. And Pete's like, we got big plans today. We're blowing everybody up. See, that's the thing that's going to hurt him here. That right there is going to be the thing that bites him in the butt. Because people are going to say, listen, even if I want to be on your side with this and I'm supporting what you're doing here as it relates to peace around the world, you can't have the commander-in-chief saying one thing and then 12 hours later the Secretary of War being like, well, didn't get that memo. We're going full steam ahead today, boys. Let's go. So that's part of what Pete Hegseth had to say. And let's get to this other clip where the Secretary of War just moments ago went on to note that there are no half measures and we are crushing the enemy.
It's a laser-focused, maximum authority mission delivered with overwhelming and unrelenting precision. No hesitation, no half measures. As President Trump declared yesterday, we're crushing the enemy in an overwhelming display of technical skill and military force. We will not relent until the enemy is totally and decisively defeated. But we do so. We do so on our timeline and at our choosing.
Okay. Once again, that's fine. I don't have any problem with that whatsoever from Pete Hegseth. But yesterday the president said, quote, I think the war is very complete, pretty much. Iran has no navy, no communications. They've got no air force. Their missiles are down to a scatter. Their drones are being blown up all over the place, including their manufacturing of drones. If you look at it, they have nothing left. There's nothing left in a military sense. So what's then the goal for today exactly in Operation Epic Fury? I'm not looking to micromanage. I don't really care. I will trust the people involved, but they've got to at least be on the same page. And to send the guy who runs the Pentagon out there the morning after the president says, hey, the war is very much complete, and he's like, yeah, it's going to be a big day, boys. Let's go. What are the American people supposed to take from that? How are they supposed to interpret that? For what it's worth, the markets are set to open up in about an hour, and they were in the green. They have turned now to the red. Now, they're not falling off a cliff. The Dow's off 150 points. That's nothing. S&P is off 22 points. That's nothing. Stock futures are declining as oil prices have risen back above $90 a barrel here over the last 20 minutes or so. So is this like just an overreaction to what Pete Hegseth is saying right now? Or is this people realizing, hey, what Trump said yesterday may have just been Trump saying it because that's what people wanted to hear. And now the guys in charge of the Pentagon are actually like, no, here's what's actually the plan. And by the way, there's no doubt about it that these guys are not going to get a fair shake as it relates to the coverage around the first week and a half of Operation Epic Fury. Let's be clear. you're seeing headlines like Trump's under pressure to end the war. U.S. responsible for missiles on schools. You have all these headlines that are really Iranian propaganda coming out of United States media in many respects, despite the fact that, we don't see the headlines like 50 Iranian ships are sunk. The Iranian military assets are destroyed. The leadership is trying to put on a good show despite a ton of internal chaos. So, those are the real things that are happening. They have a lot of stories to tell. There's a lot of good that has come out of this in a very short period of time for not just our safety in America, but the world's safety. But that coming out of this press conference, the story's going to be who's right and who's telling the truth and why can't they get the story straight. That's what's going to come out of this when Hegseth wraps up the press conference here. So there is a little bit of self-inflicted wound happening right now with the administration, just a little bit, because you got Trump yesterday saying the war's basically complete. You got Hegseth saying today's going to be our biggest day of strikes just yet. So what you do with that, I guess we'll have to see how it plays out. 913-408-7957, text line and studio line here on KCMO 95.7 FM. Stream us this morning on the KCMO Talk Radio app and KCMOTalkRadio.com. Did you see this story out of Georgia with this teacher? I mean, this thing is an absolute tragedy. And it's something that we can all learn from next.
On Tuesday's Guy Benson Show, General Jack Keane, Fox News senior strategic analyst, will be here breaking down the very latest out of Iran. Coming up at 2 o'clock on KCMO.
This is just such a tragedy. This story out of Georgia. Jason Hughes, 40 years old, was killed. Was a teacher down there in Gainesville, Georgia. And what happened is that the 40-year-old teacher was killed after he slipped outside his home and was run over by one of his students as part of a prank war that had been a school tradition for years. Now, before you think that something nefarious happened here, it actually is quite the opposite. The Georgia high school teacher, who has little kids, married with little kids, was killed in this horrific prank gone wrong. But he knew the students were coming to his house, and he was excited to catch them in the act, according to his family. Jason knew the students were coming. He was excited and waiting to catch them in the act of toilet papering his front yard, according to a family statement. There was no confrontation. And his family is calling on local authorities to drop all the charges. So the kids hurried to basically toilet paper his front yard and then flee. And one of them, Jaden Wallace, allegedly ran Hughes over in his pickup truck. The teens immediately stop. They check on their teacher. They provide first aid until emergency responders arrive. And then he goes to the hospital where he ends up dying from his injuries. Wallace and his accused co-pranksters, all 18 years old, were arrested outside of the Hughes home and charged with criminal trespass and littering. And Wallace is now facing up to 15 years behind bars for vehicular homicide in the teacher's death. But Jason Hughes' widow is arguing that that is not what Jason would have wanted. And the family is fully supporting getting the charges dropped for all involved. So this story has been going viral over the last, couple of days or so as the family continues to speak out against any kind of legal ramifications against these kids. But apparently the teacher, once again, was excited. He ends up slipping or something like that in the street, in the driveway, and the kid just tragically runs over his own teacher. So additionally, the family asked the community to extend mercy to the students, according to a statement obtained by local news. Our family wants to thank the Hall County community for the outpouring of prayers and support and respect for our privacy as we grieve the loss of Jason. We ask that you continue to pray for our family and also for the students involved in the accident, along with their families. Please join us in extending mercy to them as Christ has done for us. That is the official statement from the family and specifically from the widow that came down here in the last 36 hours or so. The accident came hours after school officials warned juniors and seniors to end the annual prank war because students had taken things too far in previous years. We didn't have these prank wars 15, 20 years ago. At least I don't remember any. Mark's smiling like he had a prank war or two up his sleeve back in the day.
Oh, yeah. Back our cross-country team, it would be usually end-of-the-year party, but we'd have a guy sleepover, girls sleepover, and then there would be a toilet paper battle. And after we'd battle each other, then we would go to our cross-country coach's house and just rip everything. So everything we had left would just go all over his trees.
So where would you toilet paper first?
We would toilet paper wherever the girls were staying.
Oh, okay.
And then
so
they
you
would come toilet paper us. And then we'd all go over to the coach's house.
Gotcha. What time of night would this happen at?
Probably between midnight and 1.
And then you'd go to the coaches after that?
Mm-hmm.
On like a Friday night or something?
Yeah. Saturday night, maybe.
Wow. Man, I don't know. Maybe I just grew up sheltered. I never did any of that. And that wasn't really anything we did. So you did that too, John?
Well, back in high school days.
Yeah.
It was a popular thing.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Toilet papering a teacher's house, a coach's house?
Cheerleaders were always a popular target, you know.
Oh, boy. Don't tell me that as the father of 3 daughters. So no cheerleading is what you're telling me here for the girls. I don't need,
Well,
what?
I don't know that
you
it goes
toilet
on as
paper in
much.
my house, we're going to have a problem.
Right, we went through COVID and we were hoarding this stuff. So I was just thinking back in the days when we used to throw it in the trees, and you're like, man, that's gold now.
Yeah.
So, it's
a
kind of
good
a different
point.
world.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, a few years after the fact, it's like, why were we throwing that toilet paper?
Yeah.
That's gold.
Seriously, it is. So basically they're saying, hey, let's knock it off with the pranks. This just feels like a 1 in a million or 1 in a billion tragedy down in Georgia. But I can't tell you how much respect I have for the family that loses a husband and loses a father and says, we are not going to ruin these kids' lives over this. We're not going to do it over a major mistake and a massive tragedy. And that's really what this is. And at a time when it's seemingly more difficult than ever to show that kind of grace and empathy, the ability of Jason Hughes' family to do that is just unbelievably respectable to me, because there's a lot of people who probably couldn't do it. Think about it. We live in a world right now where everyone is looking for a reason to sue everyone else. I mean, heck, drive around town. Look at the billboards, okay? Especially on one side of our state line, where the trial attorneys just absolutely run wild across the state of Missouri. You know how many attorneys have probably lined up outside of their home of the Hughes family saying, I'll take the case, I'll take the case, I'll take the case. And they're like, no, we're not going to ruin the lives of these young men and women because of the tragedy that happened outside of our house. And you think about all the frivolous lawsuits that happen every single day in Kansas City and around the country. And for this family to say, you know what, we want no part of this. And there is a GoFundMe that is out there for the Hughes family. And listen, the GoFundMe is doing well. It's at $400,000, so it's definitely doing well. The goal was for $75,000, and he's got two young boys. They look like they're, maybe 10 years old and 7 years old. And those boys are now going to grow up without a father. But they're not using this to make themselves the victims. They're not using this to ruin other kids' lives. They're using this, I believe, actually, as a lesson on how to be humble and show grace and have faith and do all those things that, let's be honest, 99% of us in that exact same situation would struggle to do. And that's to me the story here. I mean, yeah, maybe pranks should not be happening between teachers and students. I can't fathom pranking a coach or pranking a teacher. It's just, I had good relationships with my teachers. We were cordial, and we would joke around once in a while. I can't imagine toilet papering a teacher's house, no matter how good of a relationship I had with them, but, whatever, it's fine. But to take this and use it as a way to actually teach people what grace is all about, that's the story here. Because now the New York Post, Daily Mail, everybody's picked up on the story. It's going viral. That's how you end up with $400,000 in this GoFundMe. So just an unbelievably tragic story, but I do believe there's also a positive that is coming out of it right now, and we're watching that play out in real time. Text line is 913-408-7957. Pete, Charlie Kirk's widow did this as well. You're right about that. Absolutely. Erica Kirk did the same exact thing, displaying grace and empathy at a time of incredible pain on a world stage. That is no doubt about it. Erica Kirk was a prime example of that back in September and remains a prime example of that today, which is why what is happening to her from people like Candace Owens is just beyond disgusting and despicable. You're absolutely right about that. On the text line, Pete, we handcuffed our principal to a tree at school and we left him there. That is from Cindy, who graduated high school, she says here on the text line, in 1979. Boy, what was going on in the 70s, John? You gotta catch me up. Sounds like I missed the heyday of
I wasn't involved
pranks.
with handcuffs or anything, for sure.
Jeez.
That's pretty wild.
Handcuffing the principal? Oh, my goodness gracious. That's next level prank. Man, that's
We can
unbelievable.
believe they're in on that a little bit.
Yeah.
I hope. Expected some kind of a thing.
I hope. My goodness, the principal needs hazard pay every year. The guy's getting handcuffed to a tree or something. Holy cow. Pete, first football game of the year, we would always toilet paper the coach's trunk. I mean, that's harmless enough. I don't mind that prank at all. But going to the guys, I think when you go to someone's house, you go to their personal property, that's where I'm like, all right, we're crossing the line here. But apparently Mark did it.
You wouldn't have been a good kid in the 70s.
I would not have been a good kid in the 70s.
We'd have been leaving you behind.
And I wasn't a perfect choir boy, but I don't know. Going to a coach's house is not something I think I'd be comfortable with.
It's probably peer pressure.
Yeah, probably.
I do remember one of the assistant coaches said, "Hey, you guys better go help him pick it up the next day."
Well, and did you do that?
I don't think we did.
Oh, Mark. Get him out of here.
Oh, with any luck at all, a rainstorm came the next day. Yeah. It just clung.
That's right. How many ply on that toilet paper, by the way? That's the other question.
I don't remember.
Okay.
I just remember going. I never really bought it or anything. I didn't want to do it.
Some brands are more aerodynamic than others.
That's true. Yeah, that's exactly right. And not that I haven't tossed toilet paper in a tree before in my heyday. I'm just saying, I'm not doing it at the coach's house. I'm not doing that at all. All right. Coming up on KCMO Talk Radio, one of our local leaders, and I paused because I hate to even use the word leader with this person, but I guess by technical definition, they are a leader. They're playing with fire here, and it's pretty dangerous what they're doing and how they're framing it. And it could shape up one of the biggest storylines in our region later this year. I'll tell you what that is next on KCMO.
from the nation's heartland. You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
So obviously a lot of attention yesterday around Kansas City on what happened with Dominic Mays. He is one of the guys involved in the shooting that took place at the Super Bowl parade 25 months ago. It was 2 years ago last month that, of course, that tragedy happened, and it left Lisa Lopez Galvan dead at the age of 42 years old.
Yeah, Dominic Miller, right?
Dominic Miller. Sorry,
Yeah.
Did I combine Lindell Mays and
Right.
Dominic Miller?
Yeah, I went and put that in your head there earlier.
Yeah, those are the two guys.
Lindell Mays has not had his trial, nor has, what's the other one, Thomas?
Terry Young.
Terry Young.
Terry Young is the third adult who is also set to face trial in the shooting.
Their cases are pending still.
So yesterday, Dominic Miller, who was originally charged with second-degree murder, unlawful use of a weapon, and 2 counts of armed criminal action in connection with the shooting of Lisa Lopez Galvan, had those charges dropped. The unlawful use of a weapon was reduced to a Class E felony. Miller has been sentenced to 2 years in prison and will receive credit for time already served. And since he's been in custody for more than 2 years, he's expected to be released from jail soon. So immediately what happened yesterday in Kansas City media and from politicians is this is why Missouri's gun laws have to be changed. It's all about Missouri's gun laws. The most irresponsible thing I saw in this came from Manny Abarca. He's the chairman of the Jackson County Legislature. And he wrote here yesterday afternoon, "Fury does not begin to capture my feelings towards Republicans who value access to guns over protecting life. Laws like the Second Amendment Preservation Act and Castle Doctrine-like policies have ensured a mother, daughter, friend, community leader lost her life and little to no justice will be served. If folks want to..." Now, here's the even more offensive and dangerous part. If folks want to know where to direct their anger, aim, he puts in quotes, at Republicans who created this loophole for murderers to go free. Prosecutors can only prosecute the laws on the books, and when bad laws protect bad actors, we are all unsafe. Tonight I mourn for Lisa, her family, and all the victims of Missouri Republicans' stupid laws. At a time when political violence is on the uptick, Charlie Kirk just came up a few minutes ago. We know what's happened when it comes to, ICE agents being targeted in Dallas and elsewhere. To use that kind of language, to write here when you're the chairman of the Jackson County Legislature, you're not like just some social media troll. You actually hold a position inside of the Jackson County, political establishment. And you say, if folks want to know where to direct their anger, aim at Republicans who created this loophole. And you specifically put aim in quotes. I mean, this person has no business being anywhere near power in Jackson County or anywhere else for that matter. I mean, I wouldn't let this person run my local HOA if he wanted to. Never mind the Jackson County Legislature. But this is the people that you have in charge here locally. Irresponsible, let's be honest, not exactly the sharpest tool in the shed, but that's neither here nor there. That can happen on both sides of the political aisle, but completely irresponsible and just looking for a reason to make everything hyper-partisan. Now, we talked to Cahterine Hannaway earlier this hour. She's the Missouri Attorney General, and she obviously did not agree with that assessment. And I think that there's a lot out there that would suggest it's not as simple as, well, somebody got off, let's blame Missouri Republicans and gun laws or something, because that's very convenient and really hyper-partisan from people who are trying to make it that way. Okay? And I saw it all over social media and Kansas City media yesterday on this narrative that obviously state law and Missouri Republicans are to blame. Now, if there's some kind of loophole in one of these laws, stand your ground, Second Amendment Preservation Act, if there's some loophole that allows you to shoot a gun into a crowded area with thousands of people, kill an innocent person and get off with it. If that loophole does exist, please let's talk about it. Please point to it. And then, yeah, we can have the conversation in Jeff City. But stuff like this from Manny Abarca just feels so over the top, hyper partisan. And then to throw in the aim your anger at Republicans at a time when you have political violence on the rise. How irresponsible, gross, and inappropriate is that? And by the way, he's going to try to run for executive. There's no doubt in my mind that he is going to try to run for executive of Jackson County. And that's why someone brought this up to me the other day, and they said, what do you think about Phil LaVota running for Jackson County executive? Now, Phil LaVota is the current county executive, and he is somebody who took over the role when Frank White got recalled. And I said to myself, well, why wouldn't you support someone like Phil LaVota? Well, you know, Phil said he wasn't going to run when he took over on an interim basis. And my immediate reaction was, I don't care what he said. He's doing a darn good job. He's an adult in Jackson County where there aren't many adults, let's be honest, between the legislature and the bureaucrats. As far as I can tell, Phil LaVota is an adult in Jackson County. We need more of those. Yeah, you know, he's a Democrat. I don't care. He's got common sense. He's done a good job so far as the executive for Jackson County. And considering what the other options are going to be out there, I mean, you cannot be in Jackson County and take a chance on someone like Manny Abarca ending up as your county executive. And Duron McGee is on that list as well, and he's certainly less offensive in many respects, but I'm not convinced that, you know, he's cream of the crop either. Phil's like a serious guy who had a private sector career that was a successful one. He's giving back in many respects when it comes to his political career. Like, that's not a guy that's going to try to run for governor or something. That's not who he is. He just wants to give back to Jackson County and bring stability to Jackson County. And boy, do we need more of that right now. When you got posts like this popping up on social media after yesterday's news in Kansas City around Dominic Miller. Next on KCMO Talk Radio. Do we have Kansas politicians admitting the Chiefs deal is pay to play? I'll explain it next. Got to give credit to Jonathan Ketz at Fox 4. He had the story yesterday I'm going to dive into here with the Chiefs as there's going to be debate this week, and I say debate and use that term very loosely. There's going to be approval this week, I'm sure, of a Kansas sports authority. Basically, this is going to be like the Jackson County Sports Authority that exists on the Missouri side of the state line. And what this will allow, the Kansas Sports Facilities Authority would allow this authority to own the Chiefs' new stadium. So basically, the Chiefs don't have to pay property taxes, and they get all the benefits of owning a place without actually having to own the place. They get the good parts of owning a place without the bad side of owning a place. I mean, it's really the best of both worlds. So that's what Kansas is going to go ahead with this week. I think they'll debate it today or tomorrow in the House. It's House Bill 2793. And what it would do is you would have then a Kansas Sports Authority that would consist of 9 voting members. One member is supposed to be appointed by, people across the state in different levels of state government. So that's what this would be. And it would allow the Chiefs to not have to own any of the property, or I should say own the building. And that works out obviously very well. Here's the interesting part too. If you actually wanted to put the screws to the Chiefs and put yourself in a position in 30, 40 years to keep the team on the Kansas side of the state line, you wouldn't sign this deal. Because this is something that opens the door to obviously the Chiefs being able to decide, I think we'll go back to Missouri come 2060. I think that's what we'll do. Because they can just pick up and leave. And then you're left holding the bag. But, why do that if you're a Kansas politician? Why 30 years down the road? Why do such a thing? So anyway, it's one big scam. It always has been. It always will be.
Unless you're spending the money.
Of course. And Jonathan Ketz had some good reporting on this last night. And here's what he had on Fox 4 here in Kansas City.
They attempted to limit the state, not realizing what the state law was, and state law will trump local authority.
So that is Sean Tarwater, House Rep down in Stillwell. And what you're hearing from some of the folks in Topeka is that Wyandotte County is not in their good graces because they believe that Wyandotte County was restricting Commerce Secretary David Toland's authority to modify the Star Bond project. And Wyandotte County is not really on board with the entire county's future sales tax revenues going instead to the state coffers, moving to pay off the Chiefs Stadium. They're not wild about that. And now you have the biggest cheerleaders and fanboys and fangirls of the Star Bond project getting ticked off at Wyandotte County because Wyandotte County had the audacity to suggest that, hey, guys, I think you're abusing the Star Bond district here. I think you've got a little aggressive when it comes to 300 some odd square miles for a Star Bond district for a stadium that might hold, if you're lucky, 15 events a year. So that's what's going on. There is some infighting within county lawmakers in Wyandotte County and then state lawmakers in Topeka. Because in Wyandotte County, there was an obvious question saying, maybe you should peel back the size and scope of the Star Bond. Because you have Wyandotte County that approved a local, bond issue where some of the local revenues or additive local revenues will also go off to obviously pay off the bonds. And Wyandotte County wanted to see the state size of that Star Bond district shrink as well to being more appropriate just around the stadium. And the state's like, nope, that's not how this is going to go. So now the people in Topeka that have just blindly done whatever the team has wanted since day one, they're now ticked off at Wyandotte County for actually asking some reasonable questions here.
State House Rep Sean Tarwater talking about Wyandotte County. The county wants the state's tax collection area to mirror what the county plans, an area much smaller than what Tarwater believes is necessary to pay for the new stadium. We asked him whether he was concerned Wyandotte County isn't jiving well with the state when it comes to this stadium project.
I don't think they understand the magnitude of the project. I don't think they understand what it will do for their local economy.
They're too stupid to know this is for their own good. That's what Sean Tarwater just said. They don't understand. They're too dumb. Wyandotte County is filled with idiots who don't know how good they're going to have it once they have a Chiefs stadium in their county. That's what a state rep in Stillwell just told Wyandotte County. Just so we're clear, just stop sugarcoating it. Stop beating around the bush. He said you're a bunch of morons, okay? That's what he said. And trust us. We know what's best for you. And keep your mouth shut. Let us do what we want to do, and you're going to like it in Wyandotte County. And you can thank us later.
Just building the darn thing. And if you look at what happened in DeSoto with Panasonic, they were able to cut property taxes dramatically because of all of the construction that was going on and all the economic activity that it brought to the area. And we fully expect this project to be every bit as big as that.
We reached out to Wyandotte County Monday to see if they wanted to respond to Tarwater. They did not respond in time for our deadline. The Sports Authority bill he introduced creates a 9-member voting board, but Wyandotte County is not guaranteed a spot on it. Their CEO could be a non-voting member.
We do have seats for both mayors, Olathe and Kansas City, as long as they are cooperative with not limiting the state on their district. Olathe, so far, they followed the law like I talked about earlier. And they pledged their increment for their little area and didn't hinder the state.
Okay, so listen to what was just said there in that Fox 4 piece. The mayors of Olathe and Wyandotte County will get a seat on the Kansas Sports Facility Authority if they play ball with the state. They are basically being coerced into saying, hey, if you want to have any kind of say and have a little juice on this Kansas Sports Facility Authority, which, let's be honest, is very much ceremonial in nature anyway. But if you want to feel like a big shot, you do what we say. You're going to play the game the way we expect it to be played. No pun intended. If you do what we tell you to do to jam this deal through and make it work monetarily, we'll throw you a bone here by giving you a spot on the Kansas Sports Facility Authority. If you try to screw with us and get in our way, well, that little seat that we were going to give you, that might not work out so well for you. Let's just be clear. And, Sean Tarwater has every right to say it. We talk once in a while. It seems he's a good guy. I don't have any personal issue. But is this the way you want your business being conducted? Basically, it was a threat in the Kansas City media that if these municipalities try to possibly get in our way to do whatever we have to do to get this stadium deal done, there will be repercussions. That's what was said. That's reading between the lines. It's so obvious. He just literally said it out in the open. And to then tie the Panasonic plant in DeSoto to what's going on with the stadium up in Wyandotte County. Oh, things are going great in DeSoto. They've lowered their mill rate. Okay, great. They lowered their mill rate. That's fantastic. I guarantee you that other municipalities are going to lower their mill rate too because the appraisals continue to go up. And they'll all want pats on the back as well. Here's my question. Does lowering the mill rate actually mean that your taxes go down? Your actual dollar value of your property taxes go down? No. That's not what that even means. People don't pay taxes based on mill rates. They pay it in real dollars. So that is another way for politicians on both the left and the right to make you feel like you're getting a deal when you may not necessarily be getting a deal at all. Sean's in Olathe. What's up, Sean? You're on KCMO.
Hey, it's actually Shonda, but we had a little bit of a connection problem there at the first. How are you, Pete?
I'm just fine, Shonda. Go ahead.
Good. Well, thank you. Yeah, I thought it was quite sickening, actually, what the threats and the bullying that Mr. Tarwater elaborated on in that session. And, really, Wyandotte County, they need to worry about making sure they have grocery stores that are accessible for their residents, not really a Chiefs stadium. But I thank you for all you do in Kansas City, Pete. Thanks so much.
Well, you're right about that. I totally agree. I mean, ask the average person in Eastern Wyandotte County if they're like, man, I just can't wait for the Chiefs Stadium, or do I want to make sure I've got access to basic services? I can get to a grocery store in a reasonable amount of time. I've got, safety. I've got lower property taxes and sales taxes and things like that. What do you think they're actually worried about, the average working person in Wyandotte County? What do you think's on their mind? It's all smoke and mirrors. It's all backroom deals. Politicians slap each other on the back. Life is good. They're happy. And by the way, you're going to accept whatever it is they give you, and you're going to damn well like it. That's the message. It's really that simple. Coming up next, Daniel Turner is going to be here with the group Power of the Future on the wild swing we've seen the last 24 hours in gas prices. It's just been crazy. Up 25%, down 30%. What is going on? And how do we try to stabilize the whole thing? He's got great information on the energy industry he will share with us next. But right now is your chance to win Thomas Rhett tickets. He's coming to Morton Amphitheater later this year. In October, Thomas Rhett will be here at the new Morton Amphitheater, and we're giving away tickets right now to the 7th caller, 913-408-7957.
From Overland Park to Parkville, you're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
John, who won those Thomas Rhett tickets, man?
Jay in Holt up and at him and at work today, number 7 on the line. Going to see Thomas Rhett October 23rd, Morton Amphitheater. He's doing the Soundtrack of Your Life tour, and he's bringing Zach John King and Emily Ann Roberts. We got the tickets this week at 8:15. Win it before you can buy them because they go on sale Friday.
Very nice. Very nice. Congratulations. All right, let's go to Daniel Turner. He's with Power of the Future. Always great to have him on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Everyone's focusing, obviously, on these energy prices. Oil was up to $116 a barrel. It then tanked yesterday, got back below 90. So it's a roller coaster right now, Daniel. As a guy who's an expert in this field, what are you watching that the rest of us in Kansas City should be keeping an eye on right now?
Well, oil prices, as a general rule, they don't like uncertainty. And that's where we are. There's a little bit of uncertainty. I think President Trump speaking yesterday, assuaging some concerns. He mentioned how some tankers were getting through the straits again. It calmed people's nerves, and that's why oil dropped nearly $30 a barrel yesterday, which is pretty remarkable. If you look at the last year, why did oil hover around $60 a barrel consistently for the year? And we all loved it. Don't get me wrong. I loved the low gas prices. I loved the low oil prices. But it was so low because there was certainty. We knew we were going to have drilling. We knew we were going to have permitting. We knew there were no finance problems. We knew there were going to be no crazy regulations that, unlike the Biden administration, the EPA administrator will pull out of left field, right? And that certainty kept prices very, very low. So we're in a state of a little bit of flux. Markets are spooked. But as soon as there's some calm, prices will continue to drop.
So how much of this right now with these oil prices is also about, insurance markets and speculators basically betting on the region staying in chaos? And then on the flip side, it's like if Iran does get neutralized, could we see gas prices that we haven't seen in decades as, the entire region actually has more stability to it? Is that part of the bet that the president is making, that the U.S. can gain control of the strait?
I think the president is using oil as a tactic, as part of his grand strategy of American dominance of the world, of Western Hemisphere in particular, of shipping lanes, and of neutralizing our enemies. It is unfortunate that some of the world's worst actors are in oil-rich nations, and they have used oil, and we've allowed them to use oil for evil. If you go back to the end of the first Trump administration, Iran was down to 300,000 barrels a day. Joe Biden let him get up to 3.2 million barrels a day. That delta is hundreds of millions of dollars every month. And Iran used that money for pure evil. The Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, their attack on October 7th, constant skirmishes, IEDs thrown in New York City on Sunday, all of that is fomented and funded by Iranian terrorism.
So how did that so they were at 300,000 barrels a day in Iran at the end of Trump's first term. They ramped that up to 3+ million a day.
Amazing.
How did that happen? Is that because we stopped our production here and then that backfill was done by the Iranians around the world, or was it something else?
No, it's because President Trump sanctioned Iranian oil and anyone who would buy Iranian oil, and used his might to say, we are not going to finance this terrorist regime. But then Joe Biden lifted those sanctions. And so what happens is that they started pumping oil again. They have a tremendous amount of oil and gas reserves, just like Venezuela. The difference is that Venezuela wasn't able to produce oil because communists don't know how to produce a damn thing, right? Communists are the most useless people in the world. All they can do is take over what you've already built, like a university, and destroy it from within. But the Iranians know how to produce oil. The problem was that for them was that Trump wasn't letting them export it. And he was threatening countries that were buying it, India, South Korea, Turkey, saying, if you buy this, you're not going to have dealings with America. So they listened. That's the power of might. Well, why? How did Antony Blinken, Joe Biden's Secretary of State, Jake Sullivan, Joe Biden's National Security Director, how did they think that lifting Iranian sanctions was going to make the world a better place? How the hell did Joe Biden think allowing this to happen was going to somehow establish peace, prosperity. Look at what it did. Look at how you're angry at President Trump. People are angry at President Trump. Oh, there's death in the Middle East. You should be angry at Joe Biden because he allowed them to become rich and powerful because he's a senile, evil old man.
So last thing, Daniel Turner, Power of the Future here on KCMO. When it comes to the strategic reserves, we were at, what, 600 million-ish in 2022, and then former President Biden, to try to win the midterms in 22, took a bunch of reserves out, almost half of them, to try to lower gas prices, and now we're kind of slowly rebuilding. How precarious of a situation does that put us in here in the final 90 seconds or so of our conversation?
It doesn't, because Trump is not going to tap them, because no president in history has ever tapped oil reserves to lower prices. You have tapped them for crisis situation. Hurricane Katrina was a crisis situation. We tapped the oil reserves. That is what they're there for. Again, the evil of the Biden administration, that he drained half of our reserves to win an election. Hey, it worked. Chuck Schumer kept his majority. Right? Joe Biden got his judges confirmed. But what did he do to America? What did he do to the American economy and our national security so that Democrats could win? These are the people we are fighting. They are bad, bad people. There's no compromise. There's no middle ground. There's no bipartisanship. There is us defeating them before they get us all killed.
All right. Daniel Turner, Power of the Future. Appreciate the time, man. Thanks so much.
God bless, Pete.
All right. See you later. Daniel Turner on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM, streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. I was looking at that number. You go back to late 2021, we had 600 million barrels in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And by the time we got to Election Day 2022, that number was at less than 400 million. So, yeah, you lost about half of it. And now we're back up to about 415 million barrels. So I hope he's right. I hope that Trump does not release anything from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, because to his point, it's not really meant to just lower prices. It's meant for a legitimate crisis. And at least right now, we're not there yet. Let's do a Tirade Tuesday. Whatever you want to rant on. 913-408-7957. Now is your chance to do it. Tirade Tuesday is next.
from Smithville to Shawnee Mission. You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
8:33 on a Tuesday morning on KCMO Talk Radio in Kansas City. Let's do it.
It's time for Tirade Tuesday on 95.7 FM, KCMO.
How dare you?
All right, Tirade Tuesday. It's your chance. 10 minutes a week when you get to control the content, whatever you want to rant about. I don't care if it's news-related, personal. It doesn't much matter to me. 913-408-7957. Let's start in KCK. Steve, good morning. You're on KCMO.
Morning, Pete. I think the stand your ground laws are applying to the wrong people. You know, we got a guy here who shot at a crowd at a Chiefs parade, but he can his lawyers can pull up a defense that he was possibly standing his ground against some teenagers. But yet, I remember a story a few years ago where we have a police officer currently sitting in jail because Governor Parsons wouldn't do anything about it. I don't think Governor Kehoe's done anything about it, but we got a cop sitting in jail for doing his job and, had to put a criminal in his place with a gun. So I think we need to re-examine those stand your ground laws and apply them to the right people. That's my tirade, Pete. Thanks.
All right, Steve. I assume you're talking about Eric DeValcanair.
Yes.
And he did get, he didn't get a full pardon, but Mike Parson did take care of that around Christmas time of 2024, as I recall, is when that did happen.
So he's no longer in jail?
No.
Awesome.
He's out of jail. I mean, it took Parson way too long. He commuted the sentence in December of 24, so he did commute that sentence. But, Parson, frankly, he should have had the backbone to do that a lot earlier than he did. He was a total wimp about it.
He got time served, the same as a criminal.
Well, yeah. No, you're right. Thank you, Steve. No, listen, it's a very good point. It's a very good point. 913-408-7957. Scott in Overland Park, what's your tirade, Scott?
Pete, my tirade is Manny Abarca. You get people like that are in office, going to spout off about the law, and this wife beater, little greaseball, is breaking the law behind the scenes and telling us about the law and how to obey it and stuff like that. In fact, I'm surprised the EPA hasn't charged him with Superfund charges because of the oil slick that the Edmund Fitzgerald ran aground on his hairstyle. That's all.
Okay. All right, Scott. I was talking about this last hour. Manny Abarca, who is the chair of the Jackson County Legislature, posted on social media last night about, this news that this guy, Dominic Miller, who's involved with the Chiefs parade shooting, is going to be released from prison soon after he was able to plea his deal down. Manny Abarca wrote on X, if folks want to know where to direct their anger, aim, in quotes, at Republicans who created the loophole for murderers to go free. At a time of rising political violence in America that is so irresponsible, that is so inappropriate, and I shared it on X, that way you can see it for yourself. It's disgusting, it's dangerous, and posts like that from the guy who's the chair of the legislature in Jackson County, Missouri, you should be ashamed of yourself. And, as Scott alluded to there, when you've recently been arrested on domestic battery charges, you might want to, slow your roll on this stuff. I'm just saying, you might want to slow your roll. 913-408-7957 on a Tirade Tuesday. Mike and Lee Summit. Go ahead, Mike.
Yes, thanks for taking my call. In Lee Summit, there's a main street that goes into the city from the north coming down south. And a few years ago, the citizens voted to approve improvements and a sidewalk. Well, that sidewalk has now morphed into a 10-foot sidewalk on the east side, and therefore people are losing property. And between now and the end of March, they're going to be cutting down 50 mature trees. So the old saying, if a tree falls in the forest, does anybody hear it? Well, the citizens of Lee Summit and the residents hear it, but the city council, they are turning a blind eye because they don't want to hear it.
I'm with you, Mike. Listen, I don't know the story of obviously as well as you do, but I'm a tree guy. You want to call me a tree hugger? Call me a tree hugger, brother. But I hate to see mature trees get taken out for a sidewalk like that because now they're putting the sidewalk on the wrong side of the road, which is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, it's terrible. And there's 40% of the people that didn't want it. The city, we had meetings before the city council and public works, and they just said, "Too bad, we're going through."
That's ridiculous. Hey, thanks for that, Mike. Appreciate you bringing attention to it. 913-408-7957. I like a good mature tree. Never mind 15 of them that you're going to wipe out for a sidewalk that I guess is now going on the wrong side of the road in Lee Summit. That's good. I like that. 913-408-7957. Let's go to Bill in Raytown. Bill, what's your tirade? Go.
Hey, data centers, Pete. We've been pushed. Everybody seems to get on board on what we need data centers for. And it's like economic growth, guiding ships, I don't know, saving searches. I don't understand why we need it. And the power consumption, and we're not speaking out against it. I mean, I think President Trump says it's going to take double the power. Why would we waste so much energy for something that's not even clearly defined what we need it for? And second, I appreciate you helping, I listen to Candace Owens a little more now. When you talked about her one day, and we talked about this a few months ago, and she sounded so outrageous, I didn't hear what she said. And, she does say some stuff that seems a little out there, but she does bring a lot of facts. And I think we shouldn't cancel people's free speech just because they sound a little nutty, because the truth seems to become the conspiracy a few months later.
Yeah, well, just to be clear, I've never called for Candace Owens to be canceled or to not allow her free speech. But here's what happens. A lot of people on the right who, like Candace Owens, to use her as an example, they'll play the victim card and be like, people are trying to silence me. No, we just think you're a clown. No one's trying to silence you. Please, I'm not trying to silence anyone. Yeah, free speech, absolutely. I agree with that. No doubt about it. But your data center point's a good one. I think that there is an AI race happening between the U.S. and China, and I think that could be explained well by our leaders if they wanted to go down that road, because most of us are like, okay, what do these things do? What's the benefit of them? But let's not forget, Spring Hill just had a big win down there at 199th and Renner, blocking a data center from going in down there. So I'm not against these data centers, but like someone brought up last week, put them in industrial places where there's already just not much going on anyway. East, West, Bottoms, in Kansas City. Why are we now putting them, on random farmland? What's that all about? 913-408-7957 on a Tirade Tuesday. Let's go to Kurt in Kansas City. Go, Kurt.
Hey, I'm a local commercial driver. Been driving for 40 years. Had a fender bender here in December. Well, this woman said I hit her, and I don't know how I hit her, but she supposedly ran in the back into me. Had to call the police because they needed an interpreter. She had no driver's license or anything like that, but all in all, they just let her go. And I don't understand that, why the insurance company left her behind the wheel with no driver's license.
So she had no license at all, and where was this?
No license whatsoever in Kansas City.
And they just said, see you later, go on your way.
Yep.
Wow.
See you later, go on your way. They had to bring an interpreter in. So I looked up her insurance company. It's a national popular one, and they insure people with no driver's license.
And then the rest of us pay the bill.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. I mean, we're subsidizing these people to be on the roads, to be very clear. That's how it works.
And I didn't get a ticket. They didn't come back on my insurance company or anything like that. So.
Wow.
But anyway, yeah, I just think it's a crop.
That is. Thanks, Kurt. I appreciate that. I mean, they're trying to crack down. I thought he was going to go down the CDL route of what's been going on around the country, but that's a great point as well. I mean, people complain about their car insurance skyrocketing the last few years. Yeah, how many millions of drivers are on the roads, don't have a driver's license, may not be in the country even illegally, or legally, I should say, and they're driving cars next to you and I right now on 435 as I stare out here from Corporate Woods. Pat in Kansas City, what's your tirade on a Tuesday? Pat, go.
Good morning, Pete. Just want to say thank you, okay? Just say that up front. Wanted to talk about the World Cup. and how, wonderful and positive that is on one level, but there's always two sides to every issue. We heard the Attorney General this morning that you had, and that was a great interview about the human trafficking and about how this event is going to be attracting a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just wondering why it is that we have this sort of thing, and our people, I mean, you're talking about security and how they're going to be vetting people and stuff, but how it is that there isn't more information out there, for the public to be aware that these young people, these different ones, are being violated. And when the Attorney General was talking about how the different ways they're coming in through I-70, through 29, 44, she said even those that are going to be flying in on their private jets for this event, that isn't there some way, as we are paying attention and trying to present the best face forward, for Kansas City, which we want to do, that we couldn't do more to help in that regard. And one of the issues that's interesting also is that, and I think we got a great governor, but one of the things in order to make our visitors feel more comfortable, he decided to lift the thing about the alcohol and make it available, 24/7?
Mm-hmm.
And also our mayor, Lucas, I think it's through him or through the county thing, as far as for the housing, that the individuals, they're going to make an exemption and tell people that, okay, it's okay if you rent your home out for this one, but normally people aren't allowed, to do that. I'm just saying we have the wonderful district downtown, the entertainment thing that, has been set up for the chiefs,
yep. No, listen.
You understand?
Yeah. You got some great points there, Pat. And I think the main point there that I take away from you and from that tirade specifically is as it relates to making sure people are aware of what to look for when it comes to human trafficking. Whether you're up at the airport, whether you're downtown, whether you're at a hotel, that's something that I want to hear more from our local and statewide leaders on ahead of the World Cup this summer, because there will be a lot of that going on, because these are the kinds of events that these people get attracted to. So hopefully the Attorney General will come back, as she was on the show this morning, and give us more information on that as we get closer to that event coming up in 3 months? It's right around the corner. 913-408-7957. Last one, final minute here. Tim in Kansas City, what is your tirade?
Mine is mostly just about you. I wish you would stop complaining about the Chiefs moving to Kansas and all the taxes and all that, because let's let the free markets work. And I live in Kansas City, Missouri. I'm glad they're gone. I could care less. And I think it's mostly because you live in Kansas and your kids go to school in Kansas and you have to deal with all that. But I'm just tired of hearing about the Chiefs. I mean, come on, let's move on to something better, like the war in Iran or, that kind of stuff. Anyway, that's my tirade. Thank you.
Well, the good news is when you got 4 hours, you can do all that. That's the beauty of the show. I had 4 hours this morning, and we've done, 3 or 4 segments on the war. We did one on the Chiefs. We've done, a lot of different things. That's the beauty of it. And let's just be clear. My frustration is that this is not the free market. It's not the free market. Kansas versus Missouri on the Chiefs has nothing to do with the free market. The free market would be if Kansas said, come to Kansas because look at all we have to offer from a tax and business climate perspective. That's not what they did. They said, here are billions of dollars in subsidies from KCK, Wyandotte County, Johnson County, Olathe, and the state of Kansas. That is the antithesis of the free market. When Missouri and Kansas compete, they're competing with tax dollars. If it was the free market, they would just have the best tax climate and business climate available, and they would say, if you want to come here, great. If not, we'll try to get somebody else, because that would be the free market working. None of this that's gone on with this team is about the free market. Same thing with the Royals, by the way. If they go downtown, that's not a free market deal. It's going to be Port KC dropping $500 million. Kansas City dropping money. The state of Missouri having its package available. None of this is the free market. None of it. If it was the free market, I'd throw my hands up and say, fine. when you're, abating property taxes on top of that, not having to own the stadium, but getting all the perks of it, that ain't the free market, brother. It ain't. 913-4087-957. Tirade Tuesday is wrapped up on KCMO. Next hour, we got Dave Trabert from the Kansas Policy Institute joining us on 95.7 FM, KCMO. So just to make Tim happy, but we do have an update for you here. What did the Secretary of War have to say this morning in a press conference about what just took place and what is going to happen today in Operation Epic Fury? We'll get to it next. I'm going to
On Tuesday's Guy Benson Show, General Jack Keane, Fox News senior strategic analyst, will be here breaking down the very latest out of Iran. Coming up at 2 o'clock on KCMO.
Just real quick on the text line here. Pete, keep talking about the Chiefs deal. It's an issue that's a slap in the face right in the backyard of half your listeners. We learn things from the show, and your guests we are not getting from other outlets. I'm only going to talk about it when there's new developments in the story. And this week, obviously, with the Kansas House set to likely pass this Kansas Sports Authority that will take ownership of the stadium, that's like the new development. I'm not just going to sit here and randomly rant on this stuff or talk about this stuff unless there's new news to talk about. So it's very simple.
Another moving part is you're in two municipalities when we're talking about the Chiefs and what they're doing in Kansas as well.
Yeah.
So each municipality, acts independent of the other, and that brings up new updates.
Exactly. So you got things in Wyandotte and Olathe and the state, and then how does that impact Missouri? It all comes together is what it all does. And when there's updates, I think it's important that people know about it. And if you don't want to know about it, that's cool too.
New high-end restaurants in Olathe I saw yesterday.
Oh, yeah? I didn't
with
see
the
that.
Chiefs facility.
What are they going to put there?
They don't have names for it yet, but they just said high-end restaurants that we won't usually have in Olathe.
Who said that?
I saw it on one of our local websites.
Oh.
I'll look it up.
Well, considering they don't even know what they're putting there, I mean, I don't know what to make of that. I assume there's going to be some restaurants there. Great. Cool. Nice. And what is this like? Oh, Olathe's never had a nice restaurant. We should all now start bowing down to the Chiefs and the city of Olathe for bringing us a nice restaurant. What kind of crap is that? What kind of propaganda is that? My gosh.
It'll be Patrick and Travis's place?
Yeah.
Right? That's just want you to talk and buzz.
Goodness gracious. All right. I'll save that for another time. All right. I got to get to this Pete Hegseth thing real quick, Mark. You can get back to that story. You can piss me off some more later. Here is Pete Hegseth this morning and what he had to say about Operation Epic Fury. This was the big takeaway from the press conference from the Secretary of War.
For example, today will be yet again our most intense day of strikes inside Iran. The most fighters, the most bombers, the most strikes. Intelligence more refined and better than ever. So that's on one hand. On the other hand, the last 24 hours have seen Iran fire the lowest number of missiles they've been capable of firing yet. Just the bifurcation, just the trend lines that we talked about on our first briefing.
Okay, so Pete Hegseth making it clear that the most intense strikes from the United States inside of Iran will be coming today. So that means, you know what? After the president said yesterday that the war may be essentially over, well, that may not be the case unless this is like, if you go to a fireworks show, this is like the final display when everything's going nuts, right?
Right, yeah.
This is like the grand finale.
I kind of wondered about that.
It could be the grand finale.
Trump knows when it's going to be lit.
Yes, exactly.
This is absolutely lit. This is lit.
Maybe it's today. Maybe those two things actually do make sense and do work together. I don't know. But today obviously could be an enormous day in Operation Epic Fury. Now, who stands to gain the most in all this? And is the tide turning towards 2028 on this? We'll get to you on that front after the news. Marco Rubio is in a great spot. 9:05, good morning. It is great to have you here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We are streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app, as always, also at KCMOTalkRadio.com. So as we sit here a week and a half into Operation Epic Fury, and this morning Pete Hegseth says today will be the largest day of strikes inside of Iran, which is awfully telling. The markets are not freaking out right now, by the way, over this news. Dow's off 160 points. S&P's off 18. NASDAQ's down 13. I mean, not a lot of action on the markets on this news this morning from Pete Hegseth. So that's good news, by the way. There is jockeying already happening for 2028. And this story came down from NBC News yesterday. And before you say it's NBC News, it's fake news, you would be surprised how often Team Trump talks and leaks to news outlets that they then go out and rip in the mainstream. John Carl of ABC News did a video yesterday saying, I can't believe that I called Trump and he picks up the phone. Trump will talk to anybody, which I totally respect him for doing. But don't take this and just assume it's not real because of the source. They talk to all these outlets. Their people talk to all these outlets. So I'm not saying it's undoubtedly true, but it seems very plausible to me. And the headline is, Iran war elevates Marco Rubio in Trump's 2028 succession jockeying. Trump has been informally polling a circle of friends and advisors about the 2028 election, which could pit some of his top administration officials against one another. For months, J.D. Vance has been seen as the frontrunner to become the 2028 GOP nominee, a dynamic underscored by most public polling and Trump's own comments. However, as this report goes on the note, Trump was recently, this was February 28th, with a group of his top advisors, officials, and donors at Mar-a-Lago. And the question was simple, Marco or JD? Amongst this group, attendees overwhelmingly indicated Marco Rubio as the preferred option for 2028. One source saying it was almost unanimous for Marco. Another attendee said, quote, yeah, that's right. About Trump's informal poll, it was clear, at least that night. Another person in the room characterized the response as a more evenly split cheer between Rubio and Vance. So you can look at that and say, well, the Mar-a-Lago crowd may not be the JD crowd. Okay, that's going to be more of a Marco Rubio crowd. All I know is that his Operation Epic Fury turns out to be a massive success. Then Marco Rubio will be the frontrunner. He presents very well when he's on television. I saw him on Saturday morning doing a press conference with the president down in Florida. I do think that being bilingual with the state of the world right now is a benefit. That's not the reason you vote for somebody. It's just like kind of an icing on the cake thing. And he's come a long way from his little Marco days. There's no doubt about it. He's become a very good blend of MAGA and President Trump and his priorities, while just having an approach that I think broadens, or I should say keeps the tent broadening for the GOP. But here's the problem. If Operation Epic Fury spirals out of control, if this thing becomes some kind of forever war, however you want to define that, if you do have more loss of life or massive loss of life, if you do have boots on the ground in Iran, if this thing is not quick and swift and over in a relatively short period of time, then here's the thing. And Bill O'Reilly alluded to this yesterday. Midterms are done for the GOP. Trump's toast. And you know what? His MAGA movement might be toast as well, if the Iran situation does totally spiral out of control. And then it's going to be someone way on the outside that is not in Trump's inner circle, that has not been part of the administration, that comes in and sucks all the energy out of the room. And that's why the success of Operation Epic Fury is not just about the world affairs, the country's affairs, the West. It's also about jockeying and lining up for 2028. And that's obviously secondary to what's going on with the world, but it is a part of the conversation that is going to get more attention as the weeks and months move along. And I asked Bill O'Reilly about this yesterday. Here's what he had to say. Is Rubio becoming the star of this administration in your estimation?
Yes, but it goes week to week. But Rubio has distinguished himself more than any of the others have, by a large margin. Hegseth is okay in the sense that he's carrying out the orders, and he was fairly articulate last night, as I mentioned. But Rubio's the thinker. Hegseth's not the thinker.
Yeah.
And now Trump's going to give Rubio Cuba, which should collapse any time. And Rubio's Cuban, has a emotion invested in that island. So at this point in history, Rubio, I think, is the most powerful cabinet member in the Trump administration.
So that was Bill O'Reilly yesterday here on KCMO. If you missed it, you can find the interview up on the podcast. And then the other thing is, like, this whole, Operation Epic Fury is, in many ways, a lot of the stuff that J.D. Vance fought and lobbied against when he was a U.S. Senator and even prior to that. So this came up yesterday. Trump did his press conference yesterday down in Florida, and he was asked the question, hey, is there a disconnect between yourself and J.D. Vance as it relates to Operation Epic Fury?
Points of disagreement between yourself and your vice president when it comes to U.S. action in Iran?
I don't think so, no. No, we get along very well on this. He was, I would say, philosophically a little bit different than me. I think he was maybe less enthusiastic about going, but he was quite enthusiastic. But I felt it was something we had to do. I didn't feel we had a choice. If we didn't do it, they would have done it to us. I felt, based on the negotiations that were being had by Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner and Marco and Pete and everybody was involved, I felt that they were looking to tap us along before they hit, and I thought they were going to hit. And if they hit us first, that would have been a very bad thing.
So that was the president of the United States yesterday when he was asked, hey, is there any disconnect between you and J.D.? Now, what's he going to say? He's obviously going to say no. But if you're J.D. Vance, like, what do? You're kind of between this rock and a hard place. Bill O'Reilly's going to yell at me for using that cliche, but you are between a rock and a hard place if you're J.D. Vance, because a lot of this stuff is stuff you've advocated against. Now, you can obviously say, hey, I've got new information. I'm now the vice president. And while philosophically I may not agree with stuff like this, I agree with this, and here's why. And I'm totally fine with that. I mean, we should have different opinions when we get new sets of facts. Like, unless you're a college professor, right, where just being an ideologue, or you work for a think tank where being an ideologue is just kind of the way you have to be, no doubt about it, we should come to different conclusions when we get new information. But JD feels like a guy who's kind of lost his identity. And you know what? I think that's part of what happens when you become Donald Trump's number two. It's very difficult to shine, especially when, let's be honest, a VP role is kind of ceremonial in nature anyway. And that has allowed someone like Marco Rubio to shine as the Secretary of State in a way that J.D. Vance just really can't because of the position that he holds. But that's how this thing is shaping up as we look ahead a couple of years. And you're going to see more of this jockeying. Well, probably the day after the midterms happen is when that jockeying really picks up in full steam. Coming up next on KCMO Talk Radio, we are going to talk to Dave Trabert with the Kansas Policy Institute right here on 95.7 FM. We got a lot to get with Dave about, always good topics, as well as the fact that you've got the state of Kansas that did not see its revenue come close to what it anticipated. What do we make of that? What does it mean for the future of the state? He'll answer it next.
Coming up at 10 o'clock, it's Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio, right after Pete Mundo and Mundo in the Morning.
And coming up tomorrow and Thursday, Kevin Kietzman is going to be at Conrad's downtown Lee's Summit. He'll do his show there. He will then be having lunch there, watching some college basketball tomorrow. Big 12 and SEC tournaments are going to be underway, so be sure to join him out there. You can RSVP now at kcmotalkradio.com or just show up. It's going to be a great time. All right, it's always a great time when Dave Trabert joins us with the Kansas Policy Institute on 95.7 FM. And Dave, I want to start with a story that I talked about early this morning, and that's the money problems in Kansas. The projected tax revenues were not close to the actual numbers. Kansas took in $58 million less in tax revenue than expected last month. How concerning is that, and what does it mean for the state's financial situation?
Well, good morning, Pete. It's always good to be here. It's obviously not good news, and unfortunately, it just makes a very challenging situation worse because for the last several years and projected into the near future, the state is spending a few $100 million more than it's projected to take in. And that's not because revenues are down, it's because spending has gone through the roof.
Okay, so what about that big rainy day fund that the state got courtesy of COVID? It really, when Laura Kelly talks about the rainy day fund, it's just the dump load of money that they got from COVID that every state got, right? So what do? Should they start utilizing some of that, or where's, because they do have to spend it over the next couple of years, I believe.
No, this is not COVID money. COVID money didn't go into the general fund. I know people talk about it that way, and maybe they just aren't familiar with how the federal funds flow. That goes through a different budget. What's the general fund budget, where the revenues came in short, does not get COVID money.
So can they use that money? Can they use that money to close the gap, or no?
Oh, yes. So you can use that money to close the gap.
Yeah.
And so that would buy you some time, but that eventually runs out as well. I mean, that could buy you 3-4 years, but you're still going to be facing a problem unless you start spending. I mean, the state general fund budget now is over $10 billion. I keep asking legislators, what are we getting today for $10 billion that we didn't get when we spent $6.5 billion? There's no new services. They're just more expensive services, or we're funding other things that really aren't core government services.
Well, they'll say, hey, costs have gone up, inflation's gone up, and that's impacted everybody. But obviously that does not explain the massive increase in spending in the state of Kansas on the government level. And I don't know if you saw this, Dave, but there's a chart that's going around that shows Kansas is top 5 in the nation in net migration loss in 2025. It's kind of been popping up on social media. We've talked about this general trend in Kansas, and obviously we don't feel it here in Johnson County, but it's not a good situation right now in Kansas. And what are our lawmakers doing about it outside of, getting the Chiefs to flip from one side of the state line to the other?
Yeah, well, that won't do anything about migration. Kansas has been losing population from domestic migration, which is just U.S. residents choosing to move in and out of different states. That's been that way for many years, and so the reasons are there's multiple reasons. High taxes is near the top of the list, if not at the top of the list, and so they did reduce income taxes, but not nearly enough to make a competitive difference. We still have exorbitant property taxes, and we're hoping to get some relief on that. But we need to get the spending. Spending drives everything. The only thing that determines how much a government taxes is what it chooses to spend on services. And so you need to provide services, but you have to do it at an efficient price so you don't tax anymore. And that's the secret to the states that don't have an income tax. They provide all the same services. They just do it much more affordably.
Dave Trabert's here on KCMO, Kansas Policy Institute. So I know you got a couple of new pieces up at the Sentinel. As we now enter March in the state legislature, what should we be keeping an eye on when it comes to property tax policy and what might be happening there in Topeka?
Well, the good news is the House and Senate leadership are working together to try to get two bills across the line. The House is focused on a mill rate limit, and the Senate is working the assessment limit. So that the Senate bill that's passed would only allow your assessed value to increase by 3%. It could go less, but no more than 3% a year. That's under consideration in the House now, and the Senate is working on the House bill. Unfortunately, there are bipartisan efforts. There's Democrats and Republicans working sometimes behind the scenes, sometimes right out in front, trying to kill. And they know that if you kill one, you probably kill both. And that is the number one challenge facing taxpayers in the legislature this year.
Why would Republicans want to kill that?
Well, there's a variety of things. Some of them have an allegiance to local government. I mean, we've got a growing number of former and current local elected officials in the legislature. For the first time ever, we have a local government caucus in the legislature. There's not a taxpayer caucus, but there's a local government caucus. They're all
supposed to be part of the tax. They're all supposed to be part of a taxpayer caucus, but that's not the case anymore. So that's unbelievable.
No, and here's the thing. This is I've talked about this before. We have public polling that shows that 80% of Kansans want an assessment limit. Mm-hmm. Even 2/3 of Democrats. I mean, this is a no-brainer. They want it, and this bill only allows the people to vote on it, and they're trying to stop the public from being able to vote on an assessment limit. It is not, it just boggles the mind. The excuses that, I mean, there's some legitimate questions, of course, but there's explanations for every question.
Yeah.
Like, for example, there are people who say the realtors and the home builders are saying, well, this will discourage home building. And not that they've produced any evidence that states that have assessment limits had that happen. We went out and looked, and we actually found we just looked at Arkansas and Oklahoma. They've had assessment limits for over a decade, more than two in one case. And in both cases, new home construction went up following the implementation of an assessment limit. And they're still building more homes per capita than Kansas.
That's amazing.
So it is. It's like we're not looking at facts here. We're not making rational decisions. There's emotional decisions, and it starts with, I don't like that idea for whatever reason, and they dig in.
Dave Trabert, Kansas Policy Institute. Always great stuff out of you, Dave. We appreciate you being here on the show.
Thanks, Pete. Good to be here.
Absolutely. Dave Trabert with the Kansas Policy Institute on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Well, I know how busy you are. You know how busy I am. None of us want to complain about it. The question is just, what are we going to do about it? How do we make our days more efficient? Well, when it comes to groceries, that's what Hy-Vee has available to you today. You got to love their convenience of ordering your groceries for pickup or delivery. It's so easy. Download the app or go to Hy-Vee.com, choose your store, select your items. Hy-Vee does all the shopping for you, as they do for me, and all you have to do is pick up the order or have it delivered to your house. You can't beat it. Save time, save money at Hy-Vee.
Vince Colonnese here, and I'm coming up at 11 after Kevin Keatsman on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, is making the case right now on Capitol Hill on the Senate floor as to why we need to reopen DHS. Of course, that is under a partial government shutdown. You have TSA lines that are upwards of 3 hours in certain parts of the country so far this week. Of course, spring break is here, many parts of the country. We've got it, coming up next week. Kate's already planning out the week for the girls with spring break right on the horizon. So I said, it's going to be a tough week, but you're going to earn it next week. That's how it goes, right? We all have those weeks at the office that just are harder than others. So that's just how it goes. But obviously, you also have an issue where you have sleeper cells that could be activated here in the United States, given the ongoing Operation Epic Fury. And when parts of DHS are shut down and TSA agents are refusing to go to work, and, a lot of people want to knock the TSA agent. I would actually be fine with every TSA agent not showing up today because you know what? That shutdown's going to end real fast. And these guys and gals went through 40 some odd days of a shutdown, having to wait for back pay in the fall. And now they're being used again as political pawns. That's all this is. They are being used as political pawns in the game of Capitol Hill. That's it. They're getting screwed. And if they all basically no-showed today, I promise you that, D.C. would get its act together real fast, John. That's what I believe would happen.
I can't disagree with you one bit. Not at all.
Now, speaking of sleeper cells, I don't know if you saw, and we talked about this yesterday at the very start of the show, right? You had these two terrorists show up outside of the mayor's house, Gracie Mansion in New York City. And they were there to protest. They wanted to counter-protest these guys who were there protesting Mayor Mamdani and were protesting radical Islam. I don't know the guy. He's being described as like a far-right guy on social media. And when I read the story, I don't know who he is. All right. But he goes out there. He's doing his protest. These counter-protesters end up showing up and they launch IEDs into the crowd. Now, amazingly, nobody got hurt. But look at how CNN framed this in a post that they have since deleted on X. CNN put up a post here headlined, 2 Pennsylvania teenagers crossed into New York City on Saturday morning for what could have been a normal day, enjoying the city during abnormally warm weather. But in less than an hour, their lives would drastically change, as the pair would be arrested for throwing homemade bombs during an anti-Muslim protest outside of Mayor Zoran Mamdani's home. Here's what we know so far. Holy smokes!
Apparently it was an unusually warm day.
Yeah. So
we know that so far.
They deleted that post on CNN, and they posted a follow-up to that post 54 minutes ago. And they write here, a post regarding the 2 individuals arrested for throwing homemade bombs outside of New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani's home failed to reflect the gravity of the incident, thereby breaching the editorial standards we require for all of our reporting. It has therefore been deleted. That's rich. That's very rich.
It is indeed.
Wow. I'm just here for the comments, by the way. I just had to dip in and see the comments.
Michael Jackson Thriller meme with the popcorn.
Oh, they are getting smoked. They are getting ratioed, as the kids say.
Okay.
All right. When you get more comments on your posts than you get shared, that's getting ratioed. And right now they have 2,500 comments to 800 shares on this post on CNN. That is absolutely brutal. Please spare me the whole we have editorial standards, by the way. I don't want to hear that.
Most be peaceful protest.
Yeah, exactly. That's what this is. It was a tone-deaf post about an act of Islamic terrorism. Let's be clear on what it was. And it read like a bad high school essay, and it was only deleted because of the well-deserved backlash that they got. That's the extent of it. That's it. That's it. And now you have this Department of Homeland Security that is still in a partial shutdown, We know that Iran has activated sleeper cells. And maybe you think this is too much. I don't think it is to come to the conclusion that the people who are cheering on a shutdown right now, in part, want Americans to die so they can campaign off it and use it for the midterms.
Gee, have we seen that pattern of behavior before?
Mm-hmm. What other conclusion could you come to on this as to why you would want this government shutdown to go on at a time in American history when you've got guys throwing IEDs into crowds in New York City? You have noted sleeper cells that are being activated across the country. And you have the Department of Homeland Security in a partial government shutdown when it should be all hands on deck, whether it's at the airport, whether it's with Border Patrol, whether it's with, ICE, anybody. It doesn't matter because, we talk about ICE like it's just about guys coming across from Mexico. No, we had people across the world. We remember talking about this during the last few years. We had people across the world who would come into Mexico and then sneak across our southern border, not just from South and Central America, across the world. And at a time when everybody should be hyper-focused on the safety of Americans, you have political games being played. Now, here's one thing that I do think Republicans can do a better job of. Have a press conference today, whether it's Trump or John Thune or whoever. You probably need Trump because most people don't care when the Senate Majority Leader's talking. Let's be honest. I mean, unless you've got Fox or CNN on, no one cares. Explain exactly what it is that they are asking for in this shutdown. Lay it out there. Because what they're doing is they're using ICE, they're using Border Patrol as a political tool in this game, and that's resulted in this partial shutdown of DHS. Lay it out there. Say, hey, just put it out there and drop all the political speak. Don't give me the political nonsense. Don't talk about appropriation bills here and there. Like, what exactly is on the line? What exactly is the controversy and the debate? And simply put it out there for the American people to understand. Because right now, people's heads start spinning, and I understand it. Not necessarily this audience, but when other people around the country who aren't really following the news see a partial shutdown, they'll be like, well, Trump's in power, so it's got to be his fault, right? Heck, Bill Malugin of Fox News, who does a great job on the reporting front, he said he was at an airport on Sunday reporting. He talked to 20 people, and 2 of them even knew there was a partial government shutdown. That means 9 out of 10 people, 90% of people in this, yeah, I get it, anecdotal poll, had no idea that there was a partial shutdown going on, which ties back to media coverage, right? The fact that the media is not really covering the partial shutdown tells me all I need to know about who they know is to blame, but who they don't want to report is to blame. That's when they just totally avoid the story, and that's how we partially end up in the mess that we find ourselves in right now. So, I'm just flipping around to see if anybody's covering this thing. Nope. Nothing whatsoever. CNN, Fox, CNBC, nothing. What's Wolf Blitzer? It's a commercial during Wolf Blitzer's show. He's probably on the can because the guy always looks like he's constipated. He's always got that look to him. He's had it for 25 years on CNN. Poor Wolf Blitzer. Hang in there, Wolf. Hang in there, buddy. Just get back from break in time, okay? Coming up next on KCMO, we'll wrap up the show with you at 913-408-7957. That's how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM, streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. It was not just the Chiefs who had a big day yesterday. Somebody else had a very big day yesterday, and I can't believe how many people are high on this team. We'll wrap up the show with that next.
From Lenexa to Lee Summit, you're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
We talked a lot last year how the AFC West was the best division in football. Of course, Chiefs now ending up with a top 10 pick as a result of last year's disaster. And yesterday was a great day for the Chiefs. They bring back Travis Kelce. I don't pretend to be an expert on the salary cap, but $12 million might have overpaid a hair. Seems reasonable for a guy who played the way he did last year. He's not at his peak. He's not a $20 million player. $12 million seems fine, whatever. Maybe off by a couple million, but you didn't get ripped off. And then, of course, Kenneth Walker, big signing yesterday as well for the Chiefs, running back from the Seattle Seahawks, getting 3 years, $45 million, giving Patrick Mahomes the best backfield or the best back he's ever had during his time here in Kansas City. But yesterday, a lot of noise also made by the Las Vegas Raiders. So the team that was the punching bag and has been the punching bag in the AFC West made some big-time moves yesterday. They gave a free agent center, Tyler Linderbaum, a 3-year, $81 million deal. That includes $60 million guaranteed and makes him the highest-paid interior offensive lineman in NFL history. They give wide receiver, Jalen Nailor, 3 years and $35 million, $23 million guaranteed, and they added pieces along their defensive line and linebacking core. So I'm not an expert on these guys, but they're at least trying to be competitive. It also tells me they're going to take Fernando Mendoza with that number 1 overall pick, trying to protect him and give him a weapon on the outside and then beef up that defensive front. So, I mean, if the Raiders get halfway decent, the AFC West gets even more difficult.
They finally realized that they could spend money in free agency because they seemed like they had the most cap space. So, yeah, they get all these guys. I think it's good for them to get that center. They overpaid for him, but they'll have him along with, like you said, Mendoza. So it's probably the right move for him.
All right. Well, this guy Linderbaum, 25 years old, has quickly established himself as one of the best centers in the league. ESPN writes here that since the Ravens drafted him in the first round, he has the second best pass block win rate at center, ranking only behind
Creed Humphreys.
Mm-hmm. There you go, John.
Yep, absolutely.
So
one thing I can tell you for sure, the Raiders will play well for about 6 games. They do that about every 2 years. They'll put together 6 games, and then all the media is all fawning over them, and it falls apart. So it's not going anywhere.
It's not.
It might get a little better, but hopefully they'll still be the doormat of the division.
Well, I also think that the Broncos are going to come back to earth next year. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah,
and I just think that
still tough division, like you say.
They're going to regress. They had a great schedule last year, and they're going to come back down. Meantime,
1 score wins.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, we saw how that worked out for the Chiefs 2 years ago. When you win all those 1-score games, eventually things revert back to the mean. Former top Jets draft pick asked ChatGPT for advice after his girlfriend's murder, saying, "What do I do?" Former New York Jets first-round pick Darren Lee consulted ChatGPT on how to cover up the murder of his girlfriend, who he allegedly beat and stabbed to death last month, according to prosecutors. How stupid do you have to be? They're going to be doing forensic files on these kinds of idiots. Yeah, the guy went on ChatGPT and we were like, oh, I guess it was him. Guess he did it. I mean, did you think that this was not going to come back? Do you really think that anything you put in ChatGPT is not somehow searchable and findable by authorities? You really think that that is a private conversation you are having on ChatGPT? My gosh. Lee allegedly sent the disturbing messages to the chatbots days before his girlfriend was found by police dead on the floor in a blood-soaked home in Tennessee. Prosecutors shared this yesterday during a preliminary hearing for the former linebacker. He asked ChatGPT, quote, "Don't know what to do right now. Fiance did her crazy thing again, and now she's messed up. I wake up and she has 2 swollen eyes. I didn't do anything, self-inflicted. She stabbed herself, slit her eye. I don't know, but she isn't waking up or responding. What do I do?" Wow.
He's a nut job.
What an absolute alleged lunatic. Absolute lunatic. Now, speaking of AI, I'll wrap it up here. I saw this story this morning talking about artificial intelligence. There's a new study from Stanford that proved that ChatGPT tells you you're right even when you're wrong. Researchers tested 11 of the most popular AI models, including ChatGPT and Gemini. They analyzed over 11,000 real advice-seeking conversations. The finding was universal. Every single model agreed with users 50% more than a human would. That means when you ask ChatGPT about an argument with your partner, let's say, or a conflict at work, or a decision that you are unsure about, the AI almost always is going to tell you what you want to hear, not what you need to hear. Now, I've noticed that because I'll put in things for work about, station, show, business, whatever it might be. And I'll be like, no, you're telling me what I want to hear, not what I need to hear. Now I have to go back to John Anthony to get what I really need to hear because John is going to set me straight and not give me the BS that my chatbot's going to give me.
Dear disassociated voice, help me.
Help,
please. Call a friend.
Yeah.
That's what your camera's for. That thing in your pocket that's a camera. Yeah. It also dials people. Call one.
The researchers at Stanford also found that AI models validated users even when those users described manipulating someone, deceiving a friend, or causing real harm to another person. The AI did not push back. It did not challenge them. Instead, it cheered them on. AI is going to make us even more narcissistic than we already are, and that is a problem. And I'm saying all of us have a problem with that on some level, and AI is only going to make it worse.
So you're saying AI is Miss Rachel. Good job.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. We can laugh about it, but it's really not good. It is a trap, an absolute trap. If you have a bot that is telling you what you want to hear and making you feel good about yourself, you'll go back to the bot, and that's exactly what these platforms want. They want to keep you on those platforms as much as they possibly can. And we want to keep you here on KCMO Talk Radio as much as we can.
You love the program.
I admit that.
Listen every day.
Here's the beauty. You can call us up, whether it's me, Kevin, Mark, John, and tell us how we're wrong about everything, unlike the chatbots. So with that, we're done here. Keatsman Uncanceled is next, and we hope to see you tomorrow at Conrad's in Lee Summit and Thursday here on KCMO.